Have you ever heard rap music?
Does Sir Mix-a-Lot like booty?
Listen to this. Actual rap lyrics. Life ain't nothing but gritches and money. Only they don't say gritches. They say a certain word that rhymes with it that starts with a B.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and not too long ago we were talking about how basically at DC Comics they went back and they were looking at their contracts, see who they had exclusive. That some of the bigger names, the exclusive creators at DC are like Scott Snyder, Tom King, Brian Michael Bendis. Some of those names they're revisiting, and we know a few of them probably are no longer exclusive to DC Comics. We also heard word that DC was going to be focusing more on like DC's brand was the reason that you buy their comics. Maybe it wasn't so much for the writer, the creators in there. So they were going to be, going for some cheaper talent moving forward. And now there's rumors out there that there's going to be a tsunami of DC creators starting to move over to Marvel as they've been let go of their exclusive contracts, stuff like that. And here with me to talk about that today is independent comic book writer, independent comic book editor, award-winning comic book creator, Joe Coralla. How you doing?
I'm all right, Wes. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. So I imagine you've heard about these rumors. I imagine there's some substantiating evidence out there that this is all happening, and that we are actually going to see some of those DC creators, the creators we've associated with DC for a long time, probably go and pop over at Marvel, just like we have seen more Marvel associated creators, popping over at DC. We've seen Chip Zdarsky right over there. I think we're seeing Matthew Rosenberg pretty soon. These things happen, right?
Yeah, no, these things happen. They've been happening before all the craziness this year. They're going to be happening in the future. It feels like making news out of nothing, really. Which I know is a crazy thing to suggest about a Bleeding Cool article, but these things have already been happening, and especially with everything happening right now, I think you had a lot of creators during the pandemic who, were sitting on some creator-owned ideas, who were probably thinking like, now's the time. Let me shop some things around, or look into Kickstarter. I mean, obviously, we've been seeing a lot of Kickstarter, Indiegogo campaigns, just crowdfunding to do new books during all this, and a lot of them have been successful. And I'm not just talking about like Sean Murphy or Keanu Reeves, but like there's a lot of smaller books that just because they're not making six figures doesn't mean that they aren't big successes for some of these lesser known talents.
Absolutely. Friend of the channel, Tim Lim and his creative partner, Mark Pellegrini, I think they did over 50,000 on their latest Common America volume. And, they're putting out, I believe, 4 projects a year. So they're doing all right. So there's definitely money to be made out there in the market.
No, absolutely. I've been seeing a lot of stuff through, people I know, like Marco Stack, Mark Bouchard, David Pepos, all had successful campaigns for smaller form books. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of these things happen. We're seeing some smaller publishers like TKO Studios. I just had a book, it's a short zine come out through them, but Steve Orlando and Steve Niles are both people that have books through them. The book I co-wrote with Liana Kangas there, it's got Paul Ezeketa, who's worked at Marvel and Image. So we're seeing those sort of things moving around. Of course, the other thing too that doesn't really get mentioned in this article is there are big changes in management at DC. That's a big deal. And when there's people shifting, I'm sure other channels and other people have talked about how it works, but editors are usually the people hiring the creative talent. When you have editors let go, you're not really guaranteed. If your editor goes and you're a creator, you're not necessarily guaranteed, continued work. If the editors are consolidating, they already have their Rolodex, their people they talk to. maybe they want to keep you on board. But if they're trimming titles and, hiring less creatives, some people are going to be out of luck in that case. And when you have a new editor-in-chief like Marie Javins, she has a different group of people she taps into than your Dan DiDios and your Bob Harrises. And there might be people she's been wanting to work with and hasn't been able to. And this is her time to be like, okay, well, why don't we, hire these people? And all that stuff's happening.
Yep, that's definitely right in line with what we've heard about her. She's a good eye for talent. She likes to go and court creators, bring in on big projects. So I imagine we will see that. There's another interesting, I don't want to call it interesting. There's another point that they make in that article. They're talking about, well, DC's lowering their page rates, so people are going to be moving over to DC and flooding over to Marvel. Marvel's notoriously cheap. Like, I've heard that they haven't raised their page rates in like 10, 20 years. It's not like the money's just flowing over at Marvel too.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, a lot of that stuff, both companies, have different deals for different talent. Obviously, a bigger names like your Bendises and your Dan Slotts of the world are not, making the same money as someone who's just being hired. However, when you're looking for, working comics, you're a creator, if you're wanting to stay on, as long as the page rate's in a certain ballpark that they can work with, they're going to take. And there are a lot of people who want that big two work and are willing to work at a certain rate, depending on where they are in their career, to help them market their independent stuff.
Yeah, because you get the guaranteed paycheck that is going to be coming in, so it's guaranteed income, but you also get to work with the most recognizable IP and characters available.
Yeah, absolutely. And and it helps retailers too, like an independent book, from like a Donny Cates or Steve Orlando or something like that. Like, a shop is more likely, I would think, to order books from these known quantities than an Image book from, some guy they never heard of. So
yeah, you think about recently Donny Cates crossover, well over 100,000 comic books issued on or ordered on issue number 1. Al Ewing's We Only Find Them When They're Dead. I think it was over 75,000 issues over at Boom. I think James Tynan's Department of Truth, over 100,000 issues. Was that Boom as well? No, that was Image.
That was Image. Boom has been, Something's Killing Children, Wind. Like, James is, an absolute all-star.
No matter where he goes, he just moves units.
Yeah, he does, and he's really great, and I'm very happy for his success. And then you also see, I don't know the numbers on it, but like Steve Orlando's Commanders in Crisis came out recently. You're seeing a lot of the independent books moving at like Image and Boom are from these known quantities that got their name recognition through places like Marvel and DC. So you don't necessarily want to be like, oh, I'm cutting ties and I'm just gonna go with the independent side of things and see what happens. It's a lot of people having one foot in one and one foot in the other.
Yeah, I'm sure a big reason that the Department of Truth moves so many units is because James Tynan is associated with Batman. People are enjoying his run on Batman. It feels like the character's been rejuvenated of sorts as far as the DC fans, and they're willing to follow him over there to Image and check out the new series.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're on a book that's selling as well as something like Batman, all you need is a fraction of that audience to give you a shot at Image or Boom, and you're going to do gangbusters. So yeah, I mean that's just natural. Obviously, Scott Snyder and Charles Soule with Undiscovered Country as well, and Scott is he's got
a couple more projects coming out.
Yeah,
Tony Daniel, Nocturna.
Yeah, Nocturna, and I mean Scott is no stranger to independent books. I mean, going back to I think Severed at Image that he co-wrote with Scott Tuft. It's like 2011 or 2012. Might have been 2011. It's been a while since I read it, but he's been doing stuff at Image for almost.
Yeah, he had a book with Sean Gordon Murphy back before they were at DC, I think.
There was Sean Murphy and him did an arc of American Vampire at Vertigo, and they also did The Wake, which I think was also Vertigo.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, he's Scott's been diversifying where he's writing for quite a while, and is a known quantity through Image. I mean, there are people, you don't even necessarily have to be aware of Scott's DC work to have a full shelf between, Severed, Witches. I'm blanking on the one he did with Jeff Lemire. But he's done a lot of independent stuff, and we'll just continue doing that. Same thing with Steve Orlando. I mean, one of the first books I think I got of his was Undertow, which was an Image book. And that was like right before or around when Midnighter was coming out. So a lot of these creators have already dipped their toes in and have an established track record at places like Image.
Yeah, I imagine some of these creators at DC, there's going to be less work. It sounds like they're scaling the line down a bit. Some of them are definitely going to go over to Marvel. Maybe their lifelong dream is to write Iron Man, or their lifelong dream is to work on X-Men or something like that. But there's so many opportunities in the market today. Just, talking about these hot indie books, on Boom, Image, IDW, obviously The Last Ronin, their Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stuff. But then you talk about the crowdfunding stuff. There's just so many opportunities. You can bet on yourself nowadays. And, if you have a big enough name, you can almost be guaranteed that you're not just going to eat it,
Yeah, especially in those situations where crowdfunding comes into play. Because, I mean, there are plenty of people who, they don't even necessarily have to have a publisher lined up or anything. I mean, Matt Kent and Jeff Lemire just had a 6-figure crowdfunder. I forget who did the art, because I think the two of them just, did co-writing. But yeah, you don't even have to have a publisher attached. Publishers, if you're a name and you kickstart or do an Indiegogo and make over $100,000 or something, publishers come to you. People reach out to you and go like, "Oh, hey, we'd love to help you distribute this book." It's if you get to a certain point, you can move books, no matter what avenue.
Yeah, really, where you see the less opportunities right now is probably something you're fully aware of, is editorial, where people are actually downsizing their editorial staffs, where they're trying to keep their output similar, but they're trying to cut overhead costs, and it seems to be like the editors are the ones that are actually taking it.
Yeah, I mean, Marvel. I'm pretty sure Marvel's been working on more of a skeleton crew editorial system for a little while, more so than DC, but now DC's done their trimming and it's probably closer aligned to that. A lot of that stuff is tough, because on the one hand, you desperately need editors to be checking these books and keeping everything in line and on the same page. On the other hand, I also totally understand. Sometimes you pick up a book, you'll just pick up a floppy, you open it up, and there's like 4 editor credits in it. And you're like, what is this?
The line editor, the executive editor, the senior editor, and the actual editor.
Yeah, so like there's a way where this works, where you're maybe using editors more efficiently, or or you're not having so many people touch the same book and it's spread out a little more. I don't know all the ins and outs, so I can't necessarily speak for how everyone tackles it, but I do get when you open up a book and you see 4, sometimes 5 editors credited, being like, there's something not right here, and I understand that.
Yeah, we're just entering some interesting times. Obviously, we come out of the pandemic shutdown. DC, trimmed down their editorial staff. We're pretty sure we're about to see that with Marvel, actually. Likely to well, there might not be anything to take out of the editorial, but Disney is cutting, jobs at their parks. They're cutting jobs at their at ESPN. They're cutting jobs in their movie divisions, and they're certainly going to be cutting some more positions than just the publisher and another VP that they announced recently. So I don't know. It's interesting stuff. It feels like, though, for creators, there might not be a more exciting time to be in comic books and really go out there and make a lot of money betting on yourself, with your own IP and your own characters.
Yeah, I mean, I would caution creators to not jump out there thinking this is a guaranteed, because I've seen that for years. People just look at, Kickstarter and Indiegogo and be like, oh man, there's money to be had. Let me put something on there and just magically get funded. Like that doesn't happen either. I mean, I think there are still multiple routes to take. If you've got great art and a great idea, I don't want to discourage people from trying, but it's not a guarantee. And then, there's still other routes of, submitting to smaller publishers and getting out through there, seeing what options are best.
Anthologies.
Yeah, obviously anthologies. I love putting anthologies together. It's a good way to get a lot of people's ideas sort of out there, to see sort of in a few books just who these up and comers are going to be coming up soon.
People might laugh, but that's how Richard C. Myers, a New York Times best-selling author, because he was in an anthology before he even did his crowdfunding project.
Yeah, what was it? Pop Gun through Image? I want to say.
No, it was like a war anthology. I can't remember the exact name of it, but I think it was through Inart. No, it was through. It was called Fubu.
Fubar from.
Fubar.
It was. I think they worked with Alterna.
Yes.
At the time, yeah. But no, it's. I mean, that's how a lot of this goes. I mean, Scott Snyder is a. Multiple New York Times bestseller because the trades of Batman were always top-selling trades the month they would get collected. So you'd see that sort of stuff. There's a lot of ways to sort of break in and just keeping all your options open. If someone tells you there's only one way to do it, don't believe them. There's multiple ways to do it. And like you're saying, this is definitely the time. It's there are more tools to get things out there. Doing a web comic, like if you're willing to do the work.
Webtoons just announced that they're doing a big expansion.
Yeah, I mean, there are people through Webtoons, and again, it's not a guarantee, but you might get eyes on your stuff that way. Even just posting on like Instagram and other social media, like just sort of webcomics you're doing. Like there's so many ways to sort of do it, and yeah, it's an exciting time for that, and I think we're going to see more of that. I think we're going to see more established creators set up like Patreons and have like a paywall behind webcomic kind of things they do, or their
original
own
stories.
Yeah, their own original stories. I think we're going to see things like that. Like there's a lot of ways this can go.
So are you buying what Bleeding Cool is selling? Is there going to be the tsunami of DC creators heading over to Marvel? Are we going to see Scott Snyder on Iron Man, and James Tynan's going to be on Avengers, and we're going to see Jeff Johns on I don't know, Captain America? Or do you think it'll be more of a trickle than that?
Yeah, I don't know how James currently has time to like eat lunch, let alone write another book. No, I'm joking, but
he's the hottest writer in comics right now. Him and Donnie, right?
Pretty much, yeah. But I think what's going to happen is we'll get a trickle going over. Like you'll see. Maybe we'll see. I don't know, 4 creators from DC. I'm just pulling that number out of a hat. I have no knowledge of this. I'm just saying, like. Like we could end up seeing like 4 creators, like a couple writers, couple of artists go over to Marvel, and that'll be enough to be like, look at the tsunami. It's crazy. It's everyone's jumping ship, and it's like, no, it's just a few people. Like
It's just new opportunities. You're no longer locked down in the exclusive. So
Yeah.
now you can go over and dip your toe into other waters. I actually think it's a good thing. It's healthy.
No, it's good. It's healthy, and some creators end up doing better at some publishers than others. You know, so that could end
Tom
up.
Taylor's great at DC, not so great at Marvel. Tom King probably more successful at Marvel than he is at DC. You never know.
Yeah. You never know. I really like what Tom's been doing at Taylor's been doing at DC, and the Vision is still probably my favorite thing that Tom King has done. I'm sure there are people that disagree, and that's fine. But yeah, you never know. Different editorial and corporate cultures and things like that have these sort of effects. Some people just fit better in other places, and that's just how it works. And it's not a good or bad thing. It's just how it is.
Yeah, it's DC and Marvel both have superheroes, but they're different flavors of superheroes, and they're definitely not everybody's going to work with everything equally. Joe, I mean, that'll basically kind of wrap us up, talking about these rumors of a big DC tsunami heading over to Marvel. Is there anything else that you need to say before we kind of finish this conversation?
No, not really. Just that people are always moving all the time. They've been doing it since before the pandemic and before big leadership changes. They'll be doing it after. There's no real tsunami. It's just people go from one company to another and follow opportunities like any other industry.
Yeah. Jeff Johns wrote an Avengers run. Jim Shooter wrote a Legion of Superheroes run. These things happen.
Absolutely.